Welcome to Truth Talk Live.
All right, let's talk.
The truth is, I can't hide it. I can't hold it no more.
A daily program powered by the Truth Network,
This is kind of a great thing, and I'll tell you why.
where pop culture, current events, and theology all come together.
Speak
Your mind.
And now, here's today's Truth Talk Live host.
Yes, we are live again today. How exciting. From Jerusalem, 1,000 pastors and Christian leaders strong. But I have to tell you that if you were among us, you would have had 2 days that you would probably never ever forget in a way that you did not expect. In other words, we have been exposed to things that happened October 7th. 2023, October 7th, 2023. That, it's one of those things like I wish I could unsee them. I wish I could unsee the evil that a human can do to another human. I wish I could unsee the children. It's hard.
Yeah. Listeners, we are coming to you from Jerusalem, and the question has been many times, why are y'all going to Israel? And it's at the invitation of the government. There's a guy here that is a friend of Zion. He has a ministry, Mike Evans, and 1,000 pastors are here. This is historic. There's never been a time when 1,000 evangelical pastors were together in Israel, all in support, praying for Israel, but to learn. And the reason we're coming to learn now is because it's been unsafe to come. Our dear friend Robbie, who sits across from me right now, was here in May, and every time he turned around, he was hearing about a missile that was coming because he had on his app Red Alert. We're here in December, and we don't have the Red Alert app. There's no missiles flying. So now we have a time to come. 2 years later, and yesterday we went to Nova, where there was a festival, a rock. It was some kind of concert of all types of music.
It was a, they celebrate the Feast of Ingathering.
Yeah.
And, I won't go into all the Hebrew on that deal. It's just that it's an 8-day event. And on the Friday night into the Sabbath morning is the big highlight of the event. And so, it's pretty obvious that it was perpetrated, on Shabbat in order to make it as horrific as possible. And of course, if you don't know, that the Gaza Strip is right next to, in other words, the Nova Festival you can see the border from there.
You can see the border.
And that morning, they woke up at 6:30. Many of them had been awake all night, singing and dancing. There was a dance floor there, and it was sort of a Woodstock experience, it looked like to me. And to hear them, they were having a wonderful time. And if you're ever around the Jewish culture, they celebrate a sunrise like nobody does.
Right.
And
people were coming there just for the sunrise and got met at 6:30 with people with machine guns.
Well, worse than that, it started with this, what did they shoot? 800 missiles?
Yes.
So they fired 800 missiles into the air. Simply, they knew that they wouldn't get through the Iron Dome. They wanted the people to be kind of terrorized and freaked out and looking not at what they were coming across the border.
Yeah.
And what they came to do was simply to murder horribly, not just, unfortunately.
Right. Not just to shoot. That's what we've had to learn. We've heard the stories of how they were tortured. They wanted them to die slowly. And they took people hostage. And some of them were held hostage just until not long ago that President Trump was able to finally get them released. There's still a body. He's dead. They won't release him. That's still part of this problem. But as we have come to see firsthand, to hear firsthand, to hear from the widows, to hear from the fathers who lost their sons, to see a field just covered with plaques, with pictures of where they were slaughtered. And that's the word.
Yeah, they weren't, this was not, you just think they came in and mowed him down with a gun. That isn't necessarily the way it was done at all. They meant for it to be horrific, and they videoed it to use as propaganda how they murdered these people. And, the whole event was, beyond understanding. However, it highlights how much that culture, the Jewish culture, values life. Because if you could see each one of these markers, here's this man's daughter, obviously, and it's got the stuffed animals.
Yeah. And they've got the smiles. You can't hide the fact that all these pictures show a vibrant person.
And most of them, they look like they were 18, 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
And
this is just one part of what happened that day, because 400 some die here. But it's going to be 1,200 altogether before the Israeli army can get in and start pushing back against this. And we've been able to hear from soldiers of what it was like to just pick up wherever they were at and just take off, get in a car and drive and just get there and say, I've got to do something right now.
So, and then, there was a lot that they took us to with over 1,500 vehicles. It was the first time since Nazi Germany that Jews had been burned alive on purpose. An
ambulance.
Right. That ambulance, they killed 14 people in that ambulance because they were all in there and trying to get help, but burned it like you had to see it. But all the bodies, that were just charred beyond recognition, that's the way they were killing them. Any way that they could make their point was that you saw this horror. But Mike Huckabee, last night, Mike Huckabee, the ambassador to America, spoke from all of us. We had the Speaker of the Knesset, which is their parliament. We had a message from Netanyahu, and we had, all these dignitaries. But Mike Huckabee, he summed it up this way for me that just really helps me explain something, because so many people I've heard say that Israel overreacted. They overreacted to what happened. Of course, if you saw what happened, you would probably have a different reaction. But he said, to begin with, there were less civilian casualties in this war than any other war that they had fought in. He said, but that being aside, he said, Hamas had the opportunity to end the war on day 2. Yep. They were told if they would release the hostages, the war would be over. All Israel wanted back was their children. No. They said, we'll go about our business, whatever. You just release the hostages, this war can be over. But they wouldn't release the hostages, right? And so the question that Mike Huckabee pointed to, and I think is just so wonderful, is if that was your son or that was your daughter that was being brutalized in these tunnels and tortured every single day, what length would you go to in order to seek their rescue, in order to seek, their life? And that's the situation. These were mothers and fathers, and again, when you hear their story, you can't unhear it. You can't unhear, the widow. This was the love of her life.
Yeah, and the reason we're here, from the idea of Mike Evans with the government of Israel, pastors need to know, so other people in America can know, that an atrocity took place here, and it can happen again. And we've got to have a better mindset, a stronger backbone, that this nation has a right to exist. And they cannot just come in and not just murder, but as we were saying, we are not this. We've heard stories of slaughter.
No, we've seen videos, and we would not go into the graphic details of what we've seen, other than just believe me, you would not. I could not.
It was one of the hardest things I've ever watched in my life, Robbie.
Oh yeah, you did.
Real people being brutalized, so that we would have a better understanding. This is Truth Talk Live.
We would love your thoughts. 866-348-7884, 866-34-TRUTH. Yes, we always loved your calls, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. What have you seen in your life? It's like 9/11.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Welcome back to Truth Talk Live. Today we are Dr. Karsten and I live from Israel, and we are discussing what happened on October 7th, 2023, as we have been certainly immersed in that over the last 2 days. Dr. Karsten and I from 6 in the morning till, in yesterday's case, we got done with the last event at 11:40 last night. We weren't able to do the Truth Talk Live show because we were still being immersed in story after story of not only the widows or the people that lost their children, but some of the stories of those who survived.
Yeah. And the hostages, those who survived being a hostage. And how they could tell their story, but they told it and yet held back because they knew they could not tell us all the gruesome things that they had endured. And how one guy just, he was finally at the point of, Lord, please just take me home. Just get me out of here. I can't keep going. Now, we're talking 500 some days.
In a dark tunnel.
In a dark tunnel.
With all alone.
Yeah.
Nothing but
the mental part of it. And all of a sudden.
He was a little guy, but they said he'd lost 35 pounds.
Yeah.
Just, you can imagine what that'd be. One of the stories that, and again, I feel compelled to share what it is that we have seen, which is the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, everything we're saying, this is what happened. And if you got stories from people on 9/11, everybody they've experienced a trauma in their family somehow, some way. Almost everybody is touched by this, and they want to tell their story. They want somebody to care. And what an opportunity for us to bless Israel by caring.
And I will tell you, Robbie, I don't know if I've ever been anywhere where I have felt more appreciated for being here, the presence of being here, because I guess one of the lessons I want to convey, the Israelis right now wonder if anybody does care. And they've said that to us, the fact that we've shown up, and there's 1,000 pastors here, and we're looking for every opportunity we can to love on someone who, whether they are a survivor or whether they work here at the hotel. They're just so grateful. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening to us.
And
they want to know, are you coming back?
Right. And the widow today, was like, we just need to tell the story. And this one survivor of the Nova Festival, young lady, she was shot not badly in the leg, and she couldn't run. And there she was in the midst of all these dead bodies. And so what she did was hide amongst the dead bodies, right?
Yeah.
And she said that she was laying there under, a pile of other unfortunate situations, and up comes a terrorist, and, he's checking to make sure everybody's dead, and he just rams her in the back of the head with his gun. And she said she just had to swallow. She knew if she breathed, she was dead. She was dead. And then, she felt his hand come down, and she was afraid that she was, something be violated because she was dead or whatever. And, they start reaching around trying to find a phone is what she finally thought. And about 15 minutes later, another person shows up, but she can't open her eyes and see what's going on. And she, did you hear this story, Dr.
No, I had a young man tell his story. So
all of a sudden she feels this body laying up next to her, and then this person pulls one of her legs over the top of them. And she thinks, and so she, finally just terrorized, opens her eyes, and it's another young lady who is trying to hide the way she's hiding.
Yeah.
And after about 15 minutes, and they kind of see the coast is clear, they both run and survive the situation. But unfortunately, for most of them, the terrorists knew that everybody lived to the north because there was hardly nothing south of the Gaza Strip right there. And so they were on the road, and they were just machine gunning in those cars that were all burned up, that were all in this lot. And those stories of heroes, just like you hear the stories of heroes on 9/11, they're all there too. One young man drove back to the festival 3 times, filled his car with all the people he could get in the car, got him out, dropped him off, went back to get more, dropped him off, got back, and then they caught up with him. They thought they killed everybody in the car, but he'd actually put his body across one of the girls who, he basically took the bullets for her. And it's just, and then there was the young man that was in, one of the things they would do is they'd go into the shelters where people were hiding. And this one young man that we heard from his father, the story was that, he told him, look, I'm going to protect you. I'm in the IDF. I don't have a gun, but he breaks his beer bottle. And he goes, I'm going to, if they come in here.
He found a beer bottle and he broke it and said, I will protect you.
And all of a sudden, here comes this grenade, and he picks it up and throws it back. And it comes another grenade, and he picks it up and throws it back. 8 grenades.
Now, this has been verified, and that was part of it. They have video from both sides, the people in the shelter as well as the terrorists. They had video of 8 grenades being thrown in, and he grabbed them and threw them back.
And
this has never happened before, by the way. This has also been verified now in military world. No one's ever had to take on 8 grenades and survive. But then,
I think that, if I'm not mistaken, there were 20 terrorists attacking those people inside that. He was obviously the defender in the situation. It took him 20 minutes. Eventually, they shot a missile into and he took it. And apparently, 10 of the people in the bunker,
10 of the people of the 18
lived. But right before the missile came, he told them all, and this is amazing. And they have this on video. He said, I may be gone in a few moments, but if I'm gone, somebody has to pick up where I left off. And another young man in the bunker said that, we saw that his name was Moshe, was dead, and I was just dazed and I couldn't think, and then all of a sudden I thought, I'm supposed to carry on. He told me to carry on, and I looked and there was a grenade, and I threw it back out, and a second after it left my hand, it exploded, and that was the last grenade that came in that bunker, and the rest of us lived. And essentially, those 2 men held off these terrorists from this, just unbelievable heroism that has gone on in, like, so many stories that you hear about this in the world. People just want to tell their story, but God certainly is showing us something, right? He showed us this at 9/11, right? That this is hate, that we're not, and this as well as I do, there are Muslims that were on the Israeli side that were fighting against those Muslims.
They were killed. We saw their pictures as well.
And we saw their graves, right? That, that this is not a battle against Muslims. It's a battle against
evil.
It's against hate, and specifically anti-Semitism. I mean, these people, they hate the Jews, and they will do anything. And as Huckabee put it, and I will let you put it because it's your favorite Huckabee line.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that got brought out is how many Americans live in Israel. Well, the second largest number of Americans, other than Mexico, it's Israel, 700,000. So when you put that in perspective, if they attack Israel, they are attacking America. And that's how our ambassador phrases things with the president. If they attack Israel, they're going to be attacking Americans. They're going to be American casualties, and there were. And that's one of the reasons we got to stand with Israel, because we're standing with people who our people are living with and working here.
Right, and the bottom line is, and he put it, that Israel is appetizer. We're the main course. If they can take out Israel in the Middle East, believe me, what they really want, they want America, and it's not a matter of people here. It's a matter of hate. Yeah. It's a matter of something that obviously requires our prayers. It's a spiritual battle. Yeah. And our
now,
love.
when we come back, Robbie, we've got to tell them there have been some other things we've seen that we're really glad we did get to see. And I'll tell you, we've had some praise and worship in Jerusalem.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Welcome back to Truth Talk Live. Today we are live from Israel, and we really do, if you got a question, a comment, 866-348-7884. 866-348-7884. And I don't know which of it may have been the Speaker of the Knesset who was absolutely amazing that night that we got to see these men speak to us. And what he said was, it's way more easier to be someone's friend than it is to be their enemy. and, we need a friend, is what he said.
Yeah.
We need friends. And we consider you our friend. You've shown us, you showed us through Franklin Graham. He didn't say this, but I know that we bought ambulances to replace the ambulances that happened there. You've shown us by... Mike Evans and the things that he's done praying for these hostages, praying for Israel. I mean, they are seeing this.
But Mike Evans is a solid Christian. I want to be clear about this.
Oh.
He loves the Jew, but he's a solid Christian, and he just went to these families, Jewish families, and he prayed with them that their child would be released, and he walked with them day by day, and then when they finally were released, he was there with them, showing the Christian love. Oh my!
Or the ones that weren't released.
He was there with them.
Right. That's why we hear all these stories. Is Mike Evans has walked this journey for the last 2 years, and we have a chance to see this. When we did the show Tuesday night, I was a little disheartened actually by the way it ended. In that there was some discussion about the reason why I wouldn't want to go to Israel, and this was from somebody that had called in, was because you can't talk about Jesus. And I have to say that really couldn't be further from the truth, and that the tour guides go on and on and on about him. I mean, you got to admit, if you want to hear about it, they will give you insights into all these things, and Jesus was mentioned, and I saw... we sang worship songs to Jesus tonight. Yes. We were on the Southern Steps, which are the steps that Dr. Carson and I disagree a little bit. I'm absolutely positive.
Well, I think you've convinced me.
that these is where Jesus would have ascended into the Temple Mount, in his normal trips up there. But nonetheless, we are on those steps. And Mike Evans is leading this worship. And if you could have seen how much he was worshiping God and how much he was wanting us to worship God, and then you have to be in the presence of 1,000 pastors on the temple steps.
There's nothing like this that's ever happened.
Right. And in fact, the girl from the tourism department said never in the history of Israel have a Christian, evangelical thing like this ever happened. And there we were, and it was one of those moments that, again, just breaks you down that you had this opportunity to be part of it, opportunity. But getting back to this idea of you can't proselytize in Israel. In other words, you can't. It's against the law to stand on the corner and try to lead people to Jesus. And it sounds harsh when you first hear it, and there's two sides to every story. And I think that when you really deeply care about somebody, you're willing to listen to why, right? Yep. And if you're really trying to be somebody's friend, you got to give them a chance to explain, but they don't. There's a reason, right? And the reason is that if you were Jewish, the Christians have not been your best friends. I mean, they have an unbelievable history of bad experiences with Christians, especially on proselytizing. And many of them were forced to convert to Christianity at the point of a sword, or the point of being burned to death, or whatever it is that they were forced to be. And so the whole idea of people insisting that they change their faith, again, you befriend a Jew, and you have conversations with them. It's just your friend, right? And I don't see any difference I don't think that if you show people respect and honor, and you really begin to understand their story, and you care, then what the Bible says is that the Gentiles will make them jealous. It's in Deuteronomy. And the Jews really know that and expect us to do that.
Yeah. We got to talk to our guy today, and he said, you know, I do these tours for Christians. I know what you guys believe. And he said, you know, and I'm just going to bring it down to this. If Jesus comes back right now, I've got a question for him. Is this your first time or the second time? And most likely, you know, I think it's going to be his first time. But you're thinking it's going to be his second time. And we have time to talk those things out. But he goes, in essence, we're both looking for the Messiah to return, for the Messiah to come.
And you can't miss that these people are of great faith. There's one young man that was in the tunnels for 544 days, right?
Yeah.
What he would do for their Shamaz, his normal procedure was to do, you know, this. I think I'm trying to think of the word. It starts with a K, but it's late, and I'm not thinking like I normally do. But anyway, it's what we would call communion.
Yes,
because he's going to take what little piece of bread he got for the day. Now this is on, you know, Friday night, or maybe he did it every day. That he would bless God for, and he would bless God for every breath that he had, and he would bless God for this and that, and then he would drink his wine, and eat his little wafer, and praise God that he was alive another day, and. You know, the man's faith, if you could have seen his smile. Now, he just got out, a
couple of weeks ago.
and I mean, you know, they all said he was a hero. Oh, yeah. I mean, this man endured things that we can't even, because I can see now what he did endure, and he saw things that no human being should ever see.
Well, and part of this trip, to let our listeners know, is that after being at the southern wall, we went to the western wall,
which is the Wailing Wall, for those who don't know.
And it's a place to pray. And not only were we going to pray, and we took time to pray for the peace of Israel. We prayed on that southern wall, Psalms 122:6. And every believer needs to have Psalms 122:6 memorized and be in practice. It's not a suggestion. That's what we heard tonight. I loved how that was brought to us by a pastor. This is part of our prayer life. And I'm not bragging here. I'm just saying I learned a long time ago I was supposed to pray for Israel and the peace of Jerusalem from Psalms 122, verse 6. Listeners, make it part of your prayer time. Pray for this country. But then we went to the Western Wall, and we had a chance to pray.
But we have to share what I saw. Like, I've been at the Wailing Wall before, the Western Wall, whatever you want to call it, and it is an experience that you will have an encounter with God. I don't know how to explain it, just that you will, okay?
Yes, you will have an encounter with God like nothing you've ever had.
If you come with 1,000 pastors with Mike Evan, you'll have another encounter that you did not expect. Like, here comes there's a chief rabbi who decides who gets to the wall to begin with. In other words, you got to, you know, wash your hand, you got to wear a yarmulke, you know, you got to be respectful and all that. He comes out, and he prays that with all of us. The rabbi did.
Yes.
And then he and Mike Evans put their arms around each other, and they start dancing this, and they're singing this song in Hebrew. Like, what? And I thought, well, that's interesting. And he says, we are so, you know, here he is. Now, he knows we're all Christian pastors. It means so much. This is as Jewish a rabbi as you can get that's in charge of the Wailing Wall, right? Yeah. And he's saying, we cannot tell you how much and you can see by his dancing. So we get down to the wall, and I don't know if you saw this, but there was another old rabbi there that puts his arm around Mike, and they're standing at the wall, and they're dancing like there's no tomorrow. And, you know, this rabbi is wearing a skirt, and so to see him kicking up his legs with Mike was just funny. You know, you can see the black hat, and he's got the beard and the whole thing going on, and he's just dancing and kicking. Did you see it?
No, and I'll say this real quick to our listeners. We're on all these different buses and different hotels. Again, you got to imagine 1,000 pastors, so we're not all at the same place at the same time. So Robbie's seeing some things, I'm seeing some things, and but yeah, to be at that Western Wall to pray and see all these Jews praying, and then all these Christians that are praying, it's a place of prayer.
It definitely is.
And they're praying right now. They're now praying 24 hours around the clock. I could go there at 3 o'clock if I wanted to.
Oh, and you go there at sunrise, and you will see some.
Yeah.
I mean, that is what they do, and we all had notes that we were given.
Yeah.
For the
if you've
families.
never been to Israel, you get a note, and you're getting ready to say about we got a note of a person who died to pray for their family.
Right.
During the October 7th
invasion. One of those 400 police officers, I believe, or IDF forces.
Yeah.
But again, it was just, and I'm sure you had this experience too. There was a lady that was on the bus that she came. I could just see, like, she'd had a wailing wall. She was just totally broken down in tears. Like she said, "Robbie, this is what I came for. I touched God."
Yeah. And we were able to take those notes and write on it. And it's just something about I think I get more focused. I don't know why but I just find myself after multiple times of being there, I just get more focused. Lord, I've got a need here. And I got to pray for friends who are battling cancer. I got to pray for people who are dealing with marriage struggles. And I put their names there.
Right.
And I lifted up and put it in a crack. And I said, Lord, I need you. I need you to come through. They need you to come through. And then we had a lady that after it was over, we're standing around and we felt like we needed to pray as a group. And so about 30 of us standing there. And then this lady, after we prayed, said, I just want y'all to know, just before I came, they told me I had cancer. I've already had my first treatment, and the tears are just flowing. And I asked my doctor, should I go? And he said, you have to go, because people will be praying for you there.
Yeah, they will. And they did.
Yeah.
And they did. All right, we got one more segment. We would love to hear from you. 866-348-7884. 866-348-7884. We'll be right back. Live from Israel. How fun.
Truth Talk Live.
You're listening to the Truth Network and truthnetwork.com.
Just like the Bible said it would. Welcome back to Truth Talk Live. Today we are actually live from Jerusalem. We're at the Grand
Court.
The Grand Court Hotel in Jerusalem. It's late, but here it's almost midnight. We're about 10 minutes away. But what an honor it is to share.
We're becoming more like God, where he never slumbers or sleeps. Psalms 121, verse 4.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's such an honor, Dr. Carson, when you think about it, that God has all of us, not just you and me. But, if you've listened to this show today, you can't unhear it either.
No.
And realize that God is doing something to wake us all up. No. If you bless Israel, you're going to be blessed. Your families, look at that. No. And if you curse Israel, unfortunately, it doesn't go well for you.
Now, I got to get a Date the Word plug in here.
Okay, that's right. You got a new book coming out.
I got a book coming out that people can go to www.datetheword.com, and the verse for yesterday was Genesis 12:3, which you just quoted. And over, that was being said yesterday. If you bless Israel, God says, I'll bless you. If you curse Israel, I will curse you. And then he says, I want you to know all the families of the world will be blessed because of Abraham. Genesis 12, 1, 2, and 3. And Robbie, last night as we were in that big ceremony and Ambassador Huckabee speaking, and we were talking again about how important it is for Israel. I thought about the guy that discipled me, Bill Crawford, Madison Heights, Virginia. Bill Crawford tells me, always called me boy. Now, boy, you need to understand something. Our country's in a mess right now. We've got to have revival. God's blessing this nation, though, for two reasons. One, we send missionaries out, and two, we support Israel. Well, I'd never heard anything about supporting Israel. I had heard about sending out missionaries, but then he shows me Genesis 12, 1, 2, and 3, and it helped me as a 21-year-old get a biblical, a Christian world view of how I'm supposed to think about Israel. And I think part of what's happening, that Mike Evans' dream of this, is to help rekindle in pastors, what is your biblical worldview for Israel? Are we going to pray for our friends in Israel? Are we going to stand with them? And I got to tell you, when we think about prophecy, is the Bible true? Folks, if you come with me to Israel, I'm going to have you read Isaiah 35, and I'm going to show you the desert is blooming. It is absolutely incredible. And we were down in Judah. Usually we spend our time toward the north. We go to the Sea of Galilee. But when you drive down to where we were toward Gaza,
oh my word,
it's just unreal. And in Genesis 48, Jacob is going to bless Judah, and that's the southern part. That's where Jerusalem is. Then goes south, Judah. Well, he said, you're going to have so many grapes, you can use it to wash your clothes. And everywhere you go, you see vineyard after vineyard after vineyard. For years, it was nothing but desert. And now it is green as can be. Prophecy coming alive right before our very eyes.
It is absolutely spectacular, especially if you read Mark Twain. At time here 150 years ago, and it was absolutely barren.
Yes.
And nobody prospered on this land until the people came that owned the land.
Yep.
And they weren't farmers because in Europe they weren't allowed to own land. And so when they started the Zionist movement, started to come here in the turn of the century, they had no experience. They just were blessed. I mean, and so, yesterday we went to eat at a place, and the lemon trees and the guava trees and everywhere you looked, it was like Eden. And you knew you were in the middle of the desert, right?
Yeah. The desert is blooming, folks.
Yeah, those lemons were blooming, but they also had lemons. It was something to see, and it certainly, my friend Rabbi Haim says that, the prophecies are more current than the newspapers. If you look at what God is doing in Israel and realize that we have the opportunity to be their friends and have an influence on them that they would see Jesus in us.
Well, and Robbie, one of the things we also did today, going into the tunnels and where they're doing all these archaeological digs, they're finding all kind of things to, again, prove that the Bible is true. They've found signet rings that go back to the time of Herod. They have signet rings that go all the way back to the time when Nebuchadnezzar came in 586, and the king there, Jeconiah, I believe, had a signet ring that, I guess, when everything burned down, he lost his ring. They found that.
And they find coins from the time of David. So, even older,
yes.
Like, it's there, it's real. And, it's such an opportunity for us to befriend the people. But part of it is realizing that, it starts, to me, and I know it does with you too, with prayer. Like, we connect with God, and then God will give us the opportunity. I have to tell you that in myself, I've longed to go to Israel for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And people who know me know how much I love Hebrew and things like that. And it was just a matter of prayer. And then this year,
this is your second time, Robbie.
I know. I've never been, but this is my second time. And in both cases, God opened up the door. It wasn't something that happened that I paid for, or that just God, just like, I can't believe it. Like, here I am, but what an honor it is to be at this. You were appointed for this time. To be able to dig into the scriptures for yourself, not because Dr. Carson said it or because I said it. Dig in it for yourself and see what God has to say about Israel. See how much He loves them. Because here's the deal: we're grafted in. We are as much Israel as they are at this point, because we're grafted in, as Paul would say. But you don't think that Paul loved his brothers? I mean,
he had a burden. He had a burden for them to be saved.
Right. And if you really love them, right? But what do you do with the prodigal son? You can't beat them into submission. You what? You stand there with open arms. You keep loving on them. You keep the relationship in any way that you can, and you look for an opportunity to show God in your life, whatever that may look like. And in the case of Jewish people, I will tell you, they love the Scripture.
They do.
You would, and so if you want to have an immediate connection with an Orthodox Jew, begin to talk about something, a question that you have in the Old Testament, or something that you've seen that jumped out at you, and you will find a friend for life who would love to have that discussion with you, because they love the Bible. And as you begin to question, they see God in you, and it brings out that opportunity that we have to witness in a different way, right, than you might witness to somebody on the street in this situation, maybe.
I'll give our listeners another passage to consider to bring up with someone there, because tomorrow is day 5 for us. And so even though it's 12:5, Isaiah 12:5 is my key verse for that day. But here's something for day 5. Zechariah says, verse 2, this is what the Lord Almighty says: I am very jealous for Zion. I am burning with jealousy for her. This is what the Lord says: I will return to Zion and dwell in Jerusalem. Then Jerusalem shall be called the faithful city, and the mountain of the Lord Almighty will be called the holy mountain. This is what the Lord Almighty says: once again, men and women of ripe old age will sit in the streets of Jerusalem, each one of them with cane in hand because of their age. The city streets, this is verse 5. This is my verse for tomorrow. The city streets will be filled with boys and girls playing there.
And actually,
that's what's happening now.
Right, that if you go to Jerusalem right now, that if you were here 40 years ago, it was in Jordan. Jerusalem was not part of Israel at that point in time, right? That there was
Jerusalem was not part.
No. It was part of the West Bank, whatever you want to call that mess that it was. But today they are praising God, and we certainly did today on the Temple Mount and seeing God, and that is like you said, it's more current than the newspapers. In other words, these things are happening in our generation. You can see that these things are happening, and you can see this come alive, and now it's safe, right? It's not, I've got this Red Alert app that tells me if any missiles are being fired, and there's not been one fired since I've been here to make my wife feel better if she's watching or listening.
Yeah.
In other words, much safer than when we were here in May, but also an opportunity to see, God at work tomorrow, to give you a little sneak peek of where we're going. And you may know this, Dr. Carson, we're going to Shiloh. And at Shiloh is where Eli was the priest when Hannah prayed, and he thought she was drunk, that particular situation. So the Ark of the Covenant was right there, and it's one of the few places in the world, in fact, it's the only place in the world, and I believe, in my opinion, that you can go to where the Ark actually, it was right there. And you can see where Hannah prayed, but also, that they are waiting to begin this temple sacrifices again. And if you talk to the Jews, they fully believe there has to be blood. They fully believe that they have to have a red heifer. Well, the red heifers are alive and well, and they happen to be in Shiloh.
And I've never been, so this is going to be a first for me. And so tomorrow night, we're going to have more to tell you about the great things we are seeing and experiencing here in Israel.
So thank you all for listening and for praying for us as we're over here. And I just praise God for what he's doing in Israel. And we'll look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.